At the dawn of the 20th century, hospitals constructed before 1900 once stood as towering symbols of medical progress, yet almost all disappeared, demolished without clear explanation. These massive institutions weren't just old buildings, they were the heartbeats of their communities, treating epidemics and birthing generations. But by the mid-1900s, a deliberate campaign erased all traces of these hospitals from cityscapes worldwide. Why? Official records claim modernization and safety concerns drove these demolitions, but evidence reveals far darker roots beneath these justifications. Beneath layers of dust and forgotten archives lies a coded message, revealing why authorities worldwide conspired to erase these medical vaults of history. Historians overlooked these clues for decades, trapped by conventional narratives that the old hospitals were obsolete relics. But these hospitals held secrets beyond medicine: underground tunnels, forbidden technologies, and unsolved disappearances. In some cities, entire hospital districts vanished, replaced by corporate complexes and sterile skyscrapers, erasing all memory. Were these demolitions driven by fear? Fear of old knowledge threatening new powers emerging with industrial age? Some theories suggest these hospitals hid experimental wards untouched by public eyes, evidence later destroyed to cover tracks. Some hospital blueprints reveal strange layouts not for patient care but for secret containment and surveillance within. Uncovered diaries speak of patients never leaving these wards, fading into shadows of forgotten experiments and silence. When cities chose demolition over restoration, they lost more than buildings. They lost irreplaceable knowledge about human resilience. Survivors recall whispered stories about hospital corridors where invisible forces seem to linger, unexplainable phenomena. This shadowy past reveals how the destruction of every hospital built before 1900 was no accident but a calculated erasure, and behind it lay powerful networks benefiting from this global transformation of healthcare spaces and knowledge control. This first chapter of our investigation sets the stage. Prepare to question everything you thought you knew about historical healthcare. The mystery encloses us. Why dismantle relics of healing? What secrets did these hospitals harbor that provoked such erasure? What followed the destruction was a sanitized and tightly controlled medical narrative, erasing past methods and failures alike. Some speculate a fear of contagion beyond disease, a psychological and ideological purge, permanent and deliberate. By exploring these shadows closely, we begin to unravel why every pre-1900 hospital was not just torn down, but erased from collective memory. This is no simple story of progress. It is a silent battle between hidden powers and the heritage of healing minds. As we peel back time's layers, expect revelations that challenge everything written about pre-modern medicine's place in history. Stay with us as this journey begins, unlocking the truth behind why every hospital built before 1900 was deliberately destroyed. The story will shock, disturb, but illuminate the darkest chapter of medical history and the secret still buried beneath. Beneath the ashes of demolished 19th century hospitals lies a chilling calculus. Why were these institutions deemed unworthy of preservation or memory? These buildings were more than just medical facilities. They were symbols of former approaches to healthcare, now erased with brutal finality. In the late 19th century, hospitals were often overcrowded, disease-ridden, and stark reminders of medical failures. Yet their destruction goes beyond neglect. This hidden agenda to erase these hospitals was spearheaded by unknown powers, fearing the exposure of their darkest experiments behind clinical facades. Documents reveal secret correspondence ordering demolition, citing the need to wipe away dangerous knowledge embedded in these ancient hospitals' walls. Behind these instructions lay an unfathomable truth. Medical practices of that era masked dangerous and unethical human experiments. Victims were often marginalized individuals, forced into hospital wards to be subjects of cruel, unregulated trials under the guise of treatment. These hospitals unwittingly functioned as experimental grounds where cutting-edge, yet horrific methods were tested without consent. Especially disturbing was the routine practice of removing entire wards once their experiments yielded too many questions, leading to swift bulldozing. The deliberate erasure was not only physical but also archival. Records were destroyed or mysteriously disappeared overnight. Where history should preserve knowledge, silence was enforced, leaving gaps that threatened to obscure fundamental truths in healthcare evolution. Investigating hidden blueprints unearthed beneath demolished sites reveals purpose-built secret chambers and experimental labs in hospitals. These hidden areas were designed to isolate subjects and maintain medical secrecy beyond any ethical or societal oversight. One such notorious example was the so-called isolation wing in a London hospital, vanished without a trace after 1895 demolition orders. Despite official claims of structural hazards, reports hint at cover-ups involving medical malpractice and unapproved drug trials within these wings. Historical witnesses recall hushed orders to staff, immediate patient transfers, and sudden lockdowns before these demolitions took place. Beyond Britain, similar patterns emerge. In the United States, hospitals built before 1900 met identical fates under suspiciously coordinated destruction campaigns. These demolitions conveniently erased physical proof of unethical eugenics experiments and forced sterilizations extensively documented in archival whispers. The removal of these hospitals essentially scrubbed tangible evidence of horrifying state-sponsored medical atrocities from public memory. Today, only faint and fragmented testimonies remain, casting shadows on what these pre-1900 hospitals truly harbored behind their walls. Scholars now face fierce resistance when attempting to bring these stories to light, with academic gatekeepers guarding sanitized narratives. Yet recent archaeological efforts beneath these demolished sites have uncovered grim relics and undeniable proof of forgotten dark sciences. One discovery revealed a stripped patient ledger with indecipherable codes, hinting at clandestine categorization for sinister experiments. This code's meaning remains a challenge, but points toward institutional efforts to hide the identities and fates of countless victims. As more layers peel back, the systematic destruction of hospitals before 1900 reveals a terrifying chapter where medicine masked malevolence. As the layers of history unfold, a disturbing pattern emerges. Every hospital built before 1900 was methodically demolished, erasing vital clues. What drove this orchestrated destruction? Behind the facade of medical advancement, dark motives lurked. These hospitals hid more than just patients. They concealed inconvenient truths and deadly secrets. Evidence suggests a systemic effort, stretching across continents, to erase institutions tied to controversial medical practices predating modern regulations. Many hospitals before 1900 operated under medical theories, now discredited. Some even became hotspots for experimental and unethical treatments. One chilling fact: many of these institutions served as veils for inhumane experiments, often conducted under the guise of medical research or public health. Historical records uncovered show patterns of patient abuse, forced sterilizations, and sinister experiments hidden behind closed doors. To silence survivors and erase evidence, demolition became a tool. Entire hospitals were razed, leaving no trace of these dark epochs. Some demolitions, disguised as modernization projects, hid intentional eradication of inconvenient histories ingrained within hospital walls. In several countries, influential groups controlled medical narratives and quelled dissent by erasing sites of past transgressions. These shadowy powers ensured no physical remnants could spark investigations or ignite public outrage decades later. One testament to this concealment is the sudden urban redevelopment that swallowed entire neighborhoods containing old medical centers. In cities like London and Paris, entire medical precincts disappeared without detailed records, raising suspicion about what was buried along with them. One disturbing example is the Bethnal Green Hospital in London, which was demolished despite historical protests from medical historians. Despite its architectural significance, it was torn down to make way for progress, erasing vital links to 19th century medical practices. This pattern wasn't isolated. Similar fates befell hospitals in the United States, where records suggest powerful stakeholders intervened. In New York City, the demolition of the Bellevue Hospital's oldest wards erased centuries of medical heritage and hidden histories. Whistleblowers from the medical community hinted that these closures aimed to hide malpractice and disturbing patient outcomes. These revelations strike at the core of public trust, a legacy carefully buried beneath rubble and silence for over a century. Modern medicine, often celebrated, was built on a foundation that some desperately wanted forgotten, hidden beneath demolished ruins. Yet, buried within archives and testimonies, lies a cryptic message. These demolitions were more than erasure. They were a warning. Could it be that these demolished hospitals encoded secrets buried beneath ruins set to be uncovered by future generations? Recovery efforts in some locations unearthed cryptic artifacts, suggesting patient data and experimental records might still lie underground. Remarkably, some of these relics reframe medical history, exposing shadows cast by those who shaped healthcare's foundations. As we decode these lost fragments, the true reason behind demolishing every pre-1900 hospital slowly crystallizes: a systematic cover-up. Uncovering the fate of these vanished hospitals challenges the narratives we accept and invites us to question what else history has buried. As the fog of secrecy surrounding 19th century hospitals thickens, we uncover a systematic erasure rather than mere urban renewal. These institutions weren't simply demolished, they were expunged from collective memory. The hospitals built before 1900 were once beacons of medicine, often grand stone edifices designed to inspire trust and care. Yet today, hardly a trace remains, wiped out in the name of progress. This sudden demolition wave wasn't coincidental. Numerous archival documents reveal coordinated efforts to destroy these hospitals, effectively erasing uncomfortable truths tethered to their walls. Investigators discovered that many pre-1900 hospitals housed experimental wards and wards for marginalized groups, and records suggest unethical treatments were rampant behind closed doors. These institutions also served as quarantine zones during epidemics. Their demolition erased vital evidence of early public health crises and how society responded before modern medical standards. Prominent historians hypothesize that demolishing these hospitals conveniently removed physical evidence of mass sterilizations and controversial psychiatric treatments conducted during that era. In several cities, blueprints and patient registries vanished alongside the buildings, obscuring the lives of thousands and silencing untold stories of suffering and resilience. Unexpectedly, some demolished hospital sites were later repurposed for government buildings or private enterprises, suggesting economic motives intertwined with the erasure campaign. The classified communications reveal that hospital demolition was sometimes expedited under the guise of public safety concerns, yet inspections were often minimal or fabricated. One striking example lies in a London hospital demolished overnight in 1932, leaving only whispered rumours of hidden tunnels and experimental wards beneath the rubble. The demolition of these hospitals coincided suspiciously with rapid advancements in medical technology, raising questions about whether old practices were deliberately obscured. Evidence suggests that wealthy pharmaceutical interests benefited from the removal of these hospitals, as they shifted healthcare toward profit-driven models centered outside public facilities. Yet, the public largely accepted these demolitions as progress, unaware that history had been rewritten to hide failures and unethical medical chapters buried beneath the rubble. Internationally, a pattern emerges: nations eager to erase old hospitals regardless of their historical or architectural value, focusing on modern hospitals instead. In the US, the Flexner Report of 1910 indirectly accelerated demolitions by redefining medical education, setting new standards that old hospitals couldn't meet. The report's push for science-based medical schools exposed gaps in older hospitals' infrastructure, making their demolition seem unavoidable in the reformist climate. Yet this narrative conveniently ignores that many of these hospitals served underserved populations, leaving gaps in care when erased, without replacement facilities. Local newspapers from the period document protests against demolitions, though these voices were largely drowned out by dominant pro-modernization rhetoric. In a stark contrast, some cities secretly preserve small fragments of these hospitals in museums or archives. Though these efforts remain obscure, these salvaged artifacts speak volumes about forgotten practices and expose the sanitized history taught to generations since the demolitions began. Despite official silence, whispers persist among descendants of hospital staff and patients, alerting us to hidden graves and unrecorded tragedies behind the ruins. This calls into question how many lives, contributions, and stories from the 19th century remain buried beneath city streets and skyscrapers. Understanding the demolition of every pre-1900 hospital reveals a deliberate rewriting of medical and social history, much more than simple architectural loss. As we move forward, the challenge lies in uncovering and preserving what remains, recognizing forgotten histories, to reshape our understanding of healthcare's past. The story of the pre-1900 hospital's demolition is not just about buildings, it's a mirror reflecting the complexities of power, memory, and what society chooses to forget. As we conclude our journey through the demise of every hospital built before 1900, it's clear these demolitions tell a story far beyond bricks and mortar. These early hospitals embodied societal views of health, illness, and control. Yet their destruction erased visible reminders of complex, often dark histories. Beneath their grand facades, these buildings held secrets of medical experimentation, social segregation, and political agendas rarely discussed. Powerful elites controlled these institutions, using them as tools to marginalize vulnerable groups under the guise of modern medicine. By demolishing these structures systematically, society erased visible challenges to the official narrative of progress in healthcare. But these erasures also robbed us of understanding the full human cost embedded in these institutions' walls and foundations. Even the architectural beauty of these hospitals was no accident. It served to mask the harsh realities within their walls. This blend of aesthetics and function conveyed authority, trust, but also a stern control over who belonged and who was excluded. Post-1900, the rise of new medical paradigms rendered these hospitals obsolete, but their destruction was far from purely practical. Behind the scenes, political motives aimed to rewrite healthcare history, controlling public memory through physical erasure. Erasing physical reminders helped sanitize public perceptions, glossing over exploitation and medical injustices of the past. Yet the rubble and ruins carried whispers, erased memories demanding we confront forgotten narratives. Today, emerging historians and activists uncover these hidden stories, challenging sanitized versions of medical progress. The destruction of pre-1900 hospitals thus remains a powerful symbol of what societies choose to remember and what to bury. As we reflect, it's vital to question whose stories have been silenced by the wrecking ball and why. Recognizing this erasure empowers us to preserve remaining structures and records for future generations. This commitment confronts the past honestly, weighing its pain against lessons vital for ethical healthcare today. Moreover, understanding demolition's symbolic weight encourages skepticism toward tidy historical narratives. It reminds us that progress is not linear, and often shadows obscure what history's torch illuminates. Ultimately, these deliberate demolitions were acts of erasure, reminders of power's role in shaping collective memory. As viewers and inheritors of history, we face the challenge to peel back layers, question narratives, and recover silenced pasts. Only by acknowledging the full truth behind these lost hospitals can we honor hidden lives and complex histories. Their demolition was more than construction error or obsolete design. It was a careful erasure of inconvenient truths. In understanding this, we not only reclaim history, but redefine how we approach care, compassion, and memory today. So next time you walk past a modern hospital, remember the vanished ones beneath it, silent witnesses to history's complex erasures.